but I would be very interested to hear what you have to say in relation to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Our next speaker, Senator Jillian van Turnhout.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Minister, to the House. As we approach the first year, it made me think back to when I heard the announcement that there would be a Minister for Children. I was actually in Brussels, and I've learned in politics, people keep saying they're not surprised by announcements. When they said, "Did you hear that coming?" I didn't expect it. I was surprised. My jaw dropped. But at the potential of that this department can do, that for once we were really having a joined up thinking. We often talk about joined up thinking. So for me, I'm still as excited today about the potential, because obviously it has taken time to bring together the various components of your department, Minister, and obviously youth affairs was added on, which means it has the potential really to go from the cradle to that transition into early adulthood for a young person. So much essential building blocks in a young person's lives. Also, there's a lot of talk about report cards, and I don't need to remind the Minister that the Children's Rights Alliance has produced a report card on the performance of the Minister and gave it a very good performance, and certainly the intentions are all pointing in the right direction. There are many challenges. I think the resourcing is a challenge, from staffing to what belongs within the remit of the Minister. And I think that's something that we as a Seanad need to pay close attention to. Minister, you very strongly gave a commitment to early years education and those early years in a child's life. And I too would like to echo or welcome for the early years strategy that you had sought approval from Cabinet yesterday and got so willingly, which I think is an endorsement of your views of it being so important. Also, your commitment to the free preschool year, and I know that there has been some cuts to it, but I believe that your strong commitment to it has ensured that it is in place and it will continue. But I would underline the importance of quality, and we do need to all be mindful as we do cuts. You know, sometimes we can get away with certain little cuts, but I think we need to be very mindful that too many cuts could lead to deterioration in the quality of these essential early years education. Today is about early intervention and family support services, so I'm going to really focus on those issues. Minister, you've mentioned about the new Child and Family Support Agency, and I do very much welcome the work that you're doing. I think it has the potential to be a powerful vehicle for reform in how we work with children and their families and how we support them, and ultimately will lead to better outcomes for children in Ireland and for their families. And, you know, we all talk about the HSE and the difficulties with the HSE, and I suppose I'm very mindful of that in establishing this agency, we get this right. We have a real opportunity here now to get it right. For me, it's important that all actors must be clear about their roles, their responsibilities, particularly their statutory duties outlined under the childcare legislation, I would like to underline. For me, Minister, there needs to be clear lines of accountability. Who is the agency reporting to? I assume it's you. And we also need to ensure that this is an agency for all children, that it's not going to be the NAMA for children, but it really is an agency not just dealing with child protection, but also dealing with child welfare and child well-being. And in this regard, I'd ask Minister to consider strongly that public health nurses and their role would be moved into the new agency, because I believe that public health nurses play a very important role as being early identifiers of difficulties within a family, or extra supports that are needed to a family to ensure that that family works. I think all too often we've had a focus on the social workers, and I think they play an essential role, but they're not the only role in interacting with families. And I think we need to look and ensure, such as the public health nurses, would be part of the new agency. Also, Minister, I'm conscious that the new the National Children Detention Centre at Oberstown has been moved within your remit, and obviously that's a children's rights issue, which I've made my views on very clearly. But also, I'm conscious, you know, things like the Garda Juvenile Diversion Programme, you know, early intervention which you don't have a remit for, Minister. So you get them when they end up in the detention school, but not the early intervention pieces. And I would think it would be very important that you would have a role in shaping that policy around the juvenile diversion programmes. I would like to also stress the importance of youth work, Minister, and I know that there has been funding cuts to youth work organisations, but they play an essential role in early intervention in children's lives, in playing a supportive role in helping children to develop. Minister, you talked of the prevention and early intervention programmes which have been funded by the Department of Children and Youth Affairs and Atlantic Philanthropies, and you named them specifically. But I would ask you, around the programme for government, Minister, it talks about, and I quote, "A new approach is needed to break the cycle of child poverty where it must be deeply entrenched, where it is most deeply entrenched. We'll adopt a new area-based approach to child poverty which draws on best international practice and existing services to tackle every aspect of child poverty. Initially, this model will be rolled out to up to 10 of Ireland's most disadvantaged communities in cooperation with philanthropic partners to co-fund and manage the project." It's quite a vague commitment for me, Minister. I don't quite understand. Part of me thinks I know what the programme for government is saying. Part of me is not quite sure. And I was wondering, Minister, if you could give us any more detail, and if you could tell us who is taking the lead. Will this come within your department, or is it going to be somewhere else? On the issue of early intervention, I would also like to mention the report that was produced by the Ombudsman for Children earlier today in relation to an investigation on the refusal to provide assistive technology grant to a child by the Department of Education and Skills. And Minister, I'd like you to take note of that report, and perhaps could we intervene in this child's life? I think if we probably look at the cost of what the Ombudsman had to do to investigate this, perhaps we could have just provided the technology to the child. I also received yesterday evening, I came across, but I believe the case has been going on for some time, of a young child whose name I won't mention, but he has cerebral palsy. He is an assisted dog. The dog was going with the child to school, and he's since Christmas been told he cannot bring the dog to school. So the parents have taken the decision for this 13-year-old boy to homeschool the child. And this child has written a letter to President Michael D. Higgins to see can he intervene to help him. Now, it's a deeply sad letter, Minister, which I will, of course, share with you afterwards. But this is about early intervention. This is about a child's education. It's an assisted dog. It's not, just a pet. But it stops him from falling over. Very basic, stops him from falling over. So, Minister, I'd like you to perhaps give some attention as Children's Minister.
You have 1 minute, Senator.
Okay, two very last quick things is in relation to child and adolescent mental health, Minister. I was disappointed to note, obviously there's a lot of work happening, but given I have 1 minute, I'm disappointed to note that in the third annual Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service report, it says that services have been organised for children up to 16 years of age. It says the reason, it says it cannot deal with 16 and 17-year-olds because of the increase in frequency and severity above the age of 15 years of age. Now, for me, it's a child until 18. It's really not acceptable. And actually, I say, how dare they say that? I really, at this day and age, how dare they say that? So I would ask you, Minister, to get that attention. And just finally, Minister, on the children's rights referendum, obviously you can be assured of my support. I think in you raising, and I had noted myself, the term proportionality. It is so important. It's all about early intervention. Proportionality would allow the state to recalibrate the threshold for intervention in a family. So rather than being seen to be the clipboard and checking up on a family, actually going in, rolling up the sleeves, as we see public health service nurses, going in and supporting that family to work. So being an early identifier. So I strongly urge that we have the term proportionality within the wording. I think it's very important, and you can be assured of my support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Van Turnhout. I now call Senator Aideen Hayden.